Welcome to the Archive Room podcast.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Fastermai, I'm Judith Lay, and I'm very pleased to find you waiting for me at the door to the Archive Room, the place where we keep stories of island life in years gone by, told by the people who were there. So come on in. Sit down and make yourself comfortable, and let's listen to this week's selection. This week, I'm hovering around the shelf marked work, and I'm looking at a collection of little gems that could probably be described as occupations that bring satisfaction rather than salaries. But my first Archive Room guest seems to have managed the best of both worlds, getting paid for doing work that she clearly enjoyed very much. So, how many different jobs can you find in one radio station? No, it's not the first line of a joke, it's a real question. And here's the perfect person to answer it. Dee Lewis, probably better known to Manx Radio listeners as Dee Lewis, worked at the station for 16 years in a number of very different roles. When, in 1988, Dee Lewis announced that she was leaving, David Collister recorded this conversation with her, starting with the obvious question, how did it all begin?
I came here as commercial scriptwriter about 100 years ago in 1972. It feels like a previous lifetime. I can remember going into the job centre and being offered a choice between a job at Manx Radio or a job in an insurance office. This sounded definitely a cut above an insurance office. So I came up, promptly got introduced to Peter Neal, the then general manager. I was sat down, I was asked to write a couple of sample scripts from some information they gave me. That was a Friday afternoon. Kath Quine was around in those days and came wandering in. Do you want a cup of coffee, dear? And all this. It's such a friendly little place. At the end of the interview, Peter turned around and said, when can you start? I said, Monday. He said, fine.
You went on then to write hundreds of scripts, didn't you?
Hundreds. I did that job for nigh on 5 years.
Who were the worst people to write scripts for?
The same sort of business that wanted something different. Garages come to mind, hairdressers come to mind. They always used to phone up and say, write me something different. Well, all hairdressers do basically the same thing. They certainly did in those days.
But you kept them all happy, though.
I hope so.
Did you regard yourself as a creative genius or a hack?
When you have to work to order like that, you're definitely hacking away. You feel the creative spark come when you've got a little time and you can really get involved with a client's work, and they give you the time and they put some effort into it.
So you moved on to something else after that, didn't you?
Yes, I've been doing that for about 5 years when Bill Crisp, who was then the production manager, who was actually producing commercials, left the station, and Mike Reynolds and I got together and put in a plea to be allowed to do the commercial production work, which we did together for a couple of years.
Now that's pretty technical, and it involves quite a lot of stuff that the public don't really know about. They just hear the commercial, they don't know what goes into it.
Yes, perhaps most of the public won't realise that on average, we used to guess that to produce a 30-second commercial would take about half an hour's work, and that's some going.
That's with a script previously written as well?
That's with the script prepared. That's just putting together a music bed and a voiceover, getting it timed down to... because you've got to get it timed to the bare second. I mean, half a second over is no good. Half a second under, it's equally no good. It's got to be dead on the 30 seconds, the 20 seconds, the 15, whatever it was.
Did you enjoy that?
Very much, very much. That's a nice job. That was like playtime. You know, you're surrounded by all this beautiful technical equipment you can get weird and wonderful sounds out of. It's even better these days, of course, with CDs and sound effects machines and all sorts of new equipment that's available now. But in those days, it was fairly basic, but to me, it was playtime. It was like being let loose in a toy room.
Delia, you also did logging or scheduling, what do you call it, whatever you like. Now that's important. That's vital to the station. Again, it's something people don't know about.
It's central, and apart from the odd advertiser that actually comes up to visit us and sees the operation, they perhaps don't realise what goes into making sure their commercial appears at the right time on the right day.
This department's now called traffic. I don't know what it was called when you were there.
It's always been called traffic. Oh, yeah. Traffic is a radio term which nobody really in the entire industry knows the origin of. Except that we do sort of shift things from place to place, so I suppose there's a vague. You're actually making sure that a client's commercial is in the right place at the right time.
This involved very neat handwriting at one time. I remember you and Amber Cacken.
Amber Cacken. Amber Cacken was actually doing the logs, producing the schedules at the time when I arrived and was script writing. She moved on. Various people came in and out of that department. Pat Duke Peter Duke's wife, daughter-in-law of Jeff Duke. Anna Stitt, you'll remember. They were doing that job at one time. Jenny Watson, who's still here and is now doing that job, was in as an assistant in those days. Trudy Wood was in the department at one time, selling, but actually sat in the same office as us. Yeah. We had a very large and very happy office in those days. But I came in doing the scheduling when it was all still handwritten.
Yeah. Then came the computer revolution a few years ago. How did that change traffic?
Oh, it was awful at first. Anybody that's gone from a manually done job to a computerised job will understand that at first you just don't trust it. You really want to run both systems side by side for a while. You just couldn't do that here. We don't have the staff. We don't have the time. We had to say, on day one, that's it. The handwritten logs go in the bin. Goodbye. And we had to start and trust this computer all the way. Oh, my goodness. That was deadly. It's wonderful now. We can now schedule a block of 21 ads with a few keystrokes and know that they'll appear within parameters, that they'll appear all, for instance, between 9 and 12 on weekdays only, and that there will be an even spread through those hours.
And guarantee that the presenters will hit the button at the right time?
No. We haven't managed to computerise presenters yet, thank goodness.
You moved out of this exciting area into the boring old accounts area, didn't you?
You'd be surprised how unboring accounts in Manx Radio is. Actually, that move came about at the time that we were computerising. I was one of the few people in the station that actually knew anything about computers, nothing about accounts, but then the computer knows all about accounts. I knew a little about it.
So the computer was teaching you, was it?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, I had to learn from it and from what had gone before. So I came in with the overall position of looking after the computer function within the station. So that's just standing guard over the traffic and logging situation on the computer, but with definite responsibility for the account side of things. And that's okay. I mean, it's not too tough a job. Don't tell the boss.
You've seen all this grow, though. I mean, it was a small operation when you started. Now it's large,
When I first started, I think the staffing levels were about 12. I think we had about 12 actual salaried staff. We now have 30. Even now, those 30 staff are as overworked as we were at 12. That's partly due to the increase in volume of advertising coming through. But it's also due to things like an increase in hours. I mean, when I first started here, we stopped broadcasting in the early evening. We ran some religious tapes, but they finished at 10 o'clock at night. Yeah. So from 7 till 10 was the old religious tapes, Maranatha Brothers and Pan Am stuff. That's right. Hour of Decision, which I think is still on. But we used to have that every single evening.
Scriptwriter, producer, logger, accountant and broadcaster as well. You found time to do all sorts of radio shows as well. When did you start doing that? What were you doing first of all?
Well, bits and pieces along the way. Bit by bit, I learnt to work a broadcasting desk, which is not as easy as it sounds, as you well know. I sat in on various programmes, just out of interest. I used to come in on a Saturday afternoon and help out with the sports programme in the days of John Moss, all just interest. And then, in the old days when Pat Corey was doing the Roundabout programme and we had lots of taped inserts into programmes during the day, we used to run a sort of pick of the week programme on a Sunday afternoon, which Charlie Webster and I used to record on a Friday afternoon.
I remember that we presenters were asked to give in something every week from our programme for that.
Yes, you were all asked for an extra.
We really did we?
Yes, I know, you were terribly bad. I used to sneak round with tapes and place them surreptitiously at the back of the room and record you all secretively. You never knew what was coming out on a Sunday afternoon. Some people used to provide them, others not.
Then, of course, you had a longish session on the breakfast show. I suppose you loved getting up early on Saturday morning?
It's a wonderful feeling, being up at 5:30 on a Saturday morning and losing your Friday evenings completely.
And your golf programmes with Ray Leach?
Yes. I took up golf in the interim about 4 years ago. Friendly with the pro at Peel, took lessons from him, and he started advertising. And then one of the things that was suggested after I'd had a chat with him and then with the programme producers here was that we produce a series of radio golf, the radio golf course. And off we went and produced a series of 12 lessons on tape, which has since been put on cassette and have been on sale throughout the island. I believe there's actually one in America.
And we come to rendezvous now. Yes. Not rendezvous, but rendezvous.
I took over the Saturday morning breakfast show from Tracy Perkins when she went off to have twins, which was a bit over the top, really, wasn't it? I mean, if you want to get out of doing a Saturday morning, there must be easier ways of doing it than that. I asked, could I have a bash at doing a live programme? And the powers that be said, OK, go ahead. Off I went. I was doing the Saturday morning breakfast show from 7 till 9 for about 6 months and found that there were a lot of phone calls from youngsters. They were there listening, and thought, well, it'd be nice to provide them with something a bit special. Knowing that Manx Radio didn't have the funds to go and fund something, Had a chat with one of the salesmen, Ron Berry, who was also keen to get on air, and said, could you get this sponsored? Could you get us some money for a children's show? Is there a percentage to get advertisers for this? Because if it'll bring in money, you can do it. And we got together, produced a pilot for this programme, came up with the name Rendezvous, and it went from strength to strength, as much to our surprise as anybody's.
And the Isle of Man Bank came in on it, didn't they?
The Isle of Man Bank joined us after the first year.
Yeah.
Max Cat was launched. They launched their Children's Savers scheme and have done wonderfully well on it, from what I can gather.
Well, you've decided to throw it all in. Are you going to miss the place yourself?
I've got mixed feelings about it. I'm looking forward to leaving because I've got a lot to look forward out there in the world. But at the same time, I'm going to miss the friends and the antics we've got up to over the years. I mean, we've had a good time over the last 16 years. And I've thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. So it's a bit with mixed feelings. I'm ready to leave the work, but I shall miss the friends.
That was David Collister talking to Dee Lewis about her time at Manx Radio when she mentioned working on commercial production. I wonder if this happened when she and Mike Reynolds were in the studio.
The year 1477. William Caxton's putting the final touches to his first print run. Mr. Caxton.
What is it?
We've got a... OK. Ready, let's go. The year 1477. William Caxton's putting the final touches to his first print run. Mr. Caxton.
What is it?
We've just got a huge order for colour printing.
I've only just invented it.
Now listen, if I can do it as ad-lib as that, don't you break up again.
I've only just invented the press. That's all I've got. All right.
It's going to be hard work.
This could be a good one, this.
Ready, let's go. Action, on the light.
Go, right.
The year 1477. William Caxton's putting the final touches to his first print run. Mr. Caxton.
What is it, man?
Ready? Track 3. OK. All right, ready. The year is 1477. William Caxton's putting the final touches to his first print run. Mr. Caxton.
What is it, man?
We've just got a huge... Will you shut up and let me do this? Take 2. The year is 1477. William Caxton's putting the final touches to his first print run. Mr. Caxton.
What is it, man?
We've just got a huge order for colour printing.
We'll never be able to do this.
Take 4.
It's 412.
Yeah. The year is 1477. William Caxton is putting the final touches to his first print run. Mr. Caxton.
What is it, man?
We've just got a huge order for colour printing.
I've only just invented the press. Black's all I've got. Go ahead. Right, I'm sorry.
I wonder if that advertisement ever did get made.
The year is 1477. William Caxton is putting the final touches to his first print run. Mr. Caxton.
What is it, man?
We've just got a huge order for colour printing.
But I've only just invented the press. Black is all I've got.
It's for thousands, and they want it by Wednesday.
Tell him to phone Bridson and Horrocks.
But the phone won't be invented until 1876.
Good. Then we're not pressed for time. Eh? Pressed for time, eh? Get it, yeah? Eh? Pressed for time, yeah? Good joke.
Mayhem in the production suite at Manx Radio, remembering the days when our commercials were made in-house.
Manx Radio, from the wonderful Isle of Man.
Still on the subject of jobs, the role of Lieutenant Governor of the Isle of Man is usually occupied by people with very different backgrounds and work experience, generally in the armed forces around the world. But, as is certainly the case with our present Governor, Lieutenant General Sir John Lorimer, they're usually very keen to try the experiences that island life and rural communities offer. That was definitely so with Air Marshal Sir Ian McFadden, Lieutenant Governor from the year 2000 to 2005. Sir Ian decided to try his hand at ploughing, and where better to go than Cronk-y-Voddy, where he got to work under the approving eye of John Kenyock and his wife, Mrs. Sally McFadden.
Here now on the headland, our distinguished guests here at Cronk-y-Voddy Ploughing Match today, His Excellency the Lieutenant Governor and Mrs McFadden. Now, Mrs McFadden's here on her own at the moment, and she's admiring a pair of horses coming down the furrow here now, and the plough, and in the handles a familiar figure.
This is a first for my husband, and I think the first furrow ploughed was perhaps a little cautious, and we had a slight tip into the mud, but second furrow better ploughed, but I think we'll leave it to the professionals.
But he's doing quite a good job for it's a very difficult skill to acquire.
I'm sure it is, and watching the people here today, absolutely wonderful, the different types of ploughing, the different types of ploughs, but I think we've got a long way to go.
But how is he regarded? I think you've known for some time that he was going to have a go here today. Has he been looking forward to it?
Well, I think he has, but his grandfather was a farmer and used horses, but I think he might be turning in his grave if he saw the efforts.
Now, this is your second visit to Cronk-y-Voddy. You came with us on the parish visit to Cronk-y-Voddy, and I think it was at that time that we suggested you might come up here to the ploughing match.
Indeed it was. It seems a long time ago, but he's been looking forward to it, I have to say, and we're very lucky with the weather today.
Oh, it is a good day, yes,
indeed. Wonderful setting for it all.
Well, here, standing with one foot down in the furrow, looking back the way he's come and admiring it, His Excellency, Ian McFadden, you've made a splendid job.
Well, I'm exhausted, I can tell you. 3 rows and I've had it.
But it really is a first-class piece of ploughing.
Well, thank you for saying so. I can't help it. I had a bit of help there from up front and elsewhere, but...
But aren't you pleased with that?
I'm very pleased with it, actually, yes.
Are you pleased enough to enter next year, perhaps?
Looking at the standard around here, then I think I've got a long way to go.
That all apart, though, are you enjoying the day here at Cronk-y-Voddy Ploughing Match?
It's a beautiful spot. The weather is fantastic. The people are great, and the horses are doing well, and the tractors are just wonderful.
You get nowhere more Manx than here at Cronk-y-Voddy and amongst the Cronk-y-Voddy people.
I'm sure that's right, and it's a great pleasure to be here, I can tell you.
Former Lieutenant Governor Air Marshal Sir Ian McFadden, clearly enjoying himself at the Cronk-y-Voddy Ploughing Match.
Manx Radio, from the wonderful Isle of Man.
The island has, over the years, produced more than its fair share of poets. Here's David Collister talking with Patsy Everett at the time of the publication of a book of her poems. But first, David finds out how it all began.
I took it up really as a hobby, and then I recited at 1 or 2 concerts, and I needed further material to carry on, and that's really is why I've gone into 3 books.
So you were actually performing this in shows on the island, were you?
I was with the Glee Club, the Operatic Glee Club, and I had a spot on their programme. The poems seemed to be quite popular, and they encouraged me to carry on writing.
You've actually gone into 3 volumes now. They're all called Come Laugh With Me, so you've got a great sense of humour then. To have a title like that, you have to have, don't you?
Well, I suppose so, yes.
You see, you go over an enormous range of subject matters here. I mean, you're talking about village concerts and getting the doctor's waiting room and courtings and weddings and all that sort of thing. Do these subjects come easy to you?
The subjects, no. The writing, yes. You've got to think of a subject which is popular or refers to interests of a great many people. And this isn't easy. Once you've got the idea, for example, a jumble sale, it comes quite easy after that.
With a thing like the jumble sale, then, are you able to sit down and write it from memory, or do you go out to dozens of jumble sales and make notes and so on?
Well, I think it's experience of jumble sales, which seems to be one of the pastimes of the islanders.
Say a poem that's spread across a couple of pages here. How much work is involved in that? Is it hours or days, or how does it work out?
Well, that varies too. Sometimes I can write it in one night, and sometimes I start and then I'm stuck, and I have to leave it till I get another brainwave to carry on.
Tell us about the poems in the new volume, the sort of subject matter you have there.
Well, the new one, which is it's just gone to the shops, I've written about the double yellow lines on the roads.
That's about a lady, very topical, that one at the moment,
yes.
Isn't it? Yes.
About a lady taking a driving lesson. about somebody who goes for an operation, a minor operation, in hospital, and what happens to her there. The local derby refers really to the Liverpool and Everton football teams.
Oh, yeah, you're a football fan, are you?
Not really, but I'm a Liverpudlian, an ex-Liverpudlian.
So you've got to be, really.
Yeah, I've got to be.
Yes. Would you like to perhaps give us an example of these? What about that one about the double yellow lines? That sounds intriguing.
Right, here we go. If you ever cross the sea to Douglas, and the Isle of Man is not so very far, take your family, take your lover, take your little baby brother, but never, never, never take your car. Once the fairies of this island, mischievous and quaint, unearthed a crock, no, not of gold, of lovely yellow paint. They set to work, and one and all drew lines along the streets, brilliant double yellow lines, lines that never meet. You must not park upon them, nor let your car be seen. If so, you'll get a ticket stuck upon your window screen. The merry little fellows carried on the double yellows, by electric showrooms, gas offices as well, and how the people pay their bills is somewhat hard to tell. Libraries and offices the yellow lines have marred. Even the conveniences are well and truly barred. In winter, with the tourists gone, the locals park along the prom, but strictly then from 10 till 1. Get there 5 to, you're in trouble. PC comes up at the double. No use making a commotion, this lad's out for quick promotion. Wasted is your piteous look, your name goes in his little book. Don't blame the cops, they're quite good fellows. The villains are the double yellows. Come over to the island, there are pleasant ways to roam, but heed the double yellows and leave your car at home.
You may have to add another verse to that if we get traffic wardens, I suppose. Did they catch you at some time with a ticket on a yellow, or is that
well, yes,
little bit autobiographical?
Yeah,
is it?
Yes, it is really.
Right. Well, I must say, great success with it. I'm sure you will have great success with it. And the price?
Well, the price is $1.50. It's gone up, actually, because of the publishing costs. My first book was started at £1, but now with the increase in everything, it's $1.50, unfortunately.
Inflation has caught up.
Yes.
Patsy, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
David Collister in conversation with poet Patsy Everett. Our archive room guests often mention family members who left the island and settled all around the world. This poignant poem by Ronnie Fell celebrates every one of them.
From Greenland's icy mountains to India's coral strand, along the Colorado and across the Rio Grande, from Mexico to Mandalay, Hong Kong to Singapore, on the banks of the Brahmaputra and the hills of Bangalore, from Cleveland and Ohio to San Francisco Bay, there's a worldwide race of rovers you may come upon some day. You may find them setting fur traps on the snow line in Alaska. You may find them driving combines in the corn belt of Nebraska. You may find them drilling oil wells in the sands of Azaran, and you'll find their name is Kelly, and they're from the Isle of Man. In Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, in Vancouver and St. John, from Yellowknife to Gypsumville, from Goose Bay to Edmonton, in Alberta and Ontario, in logging camps and mines, in Winnipeg and Ottawa, in the glare of neon signs, in 1,000 northern settlements on 1,000 lakeside shores, behind the hardware counters of 1,000 general stores. In Wollongong and Woomera, in Melbourne and Mackay, in Broken Hill and Brisbane, in Fink and Flinders Bay, and you'll find them up in Arnhem Land, Yamba or Yarralula, or riding a train on the Nullarbor Plain from Naretha to Tarcoola. And you may find them riding boundaries with horse and tucker bag, or camping out in Cooper's Creek with billy can and swag. You may find them driving transports through the blue to Alice Springs. You may find them flying doctors who haven't got their wings. You may find them putting pineapples and peaches in a can. And you'll find their name is Kelly, and they're from the Isle of Man. You may find them on 1,000 ships of 1,000 shapes and sorts that take 1,000 cargoes to 1,000 foreign ports, from London, Glasgow, Liverpool, Southampton, Bristol, Hull, to Hamburg, Stockholm, Helsinki, Marseilles and Istanbul, to Freetown, Lagos, Cape Town, Manila, Port of Spain, Kuwait, Colombo, Buenos Aires, Christchurch, and back again. You may find them on the bridges of 1,000 salt-stained tramps, or checking in the engine rooms, oil pressures, fuels and amps, or on liners, or on tankers, wherever ships may sail, behind the canvas dodges of many a ship's taffrail. You may find them on the oceans and on all the 7 seas, from the Arctic to Antarctica, what latitude you please. You may find them in the tropics, and if you look beneath the tan, you'll find their name is Kelly, and they're from the Isle of Man. Or you'll find their name is Callow, Cayley, Callan, Kane, Christian, Corlett, Corran, Cowley, Cowl or Crane. Or you'll find their name is Farragher or Garrett or Caneen, Kenyick, Cooley or Carouche, Chiswick, Neil or Neen. Or you'll find their name is Milcreast, Qualtro, Quain or Quail, Quilliam, Quillish, Quaggin, Shimon, Quirk or Sale. But no matter what the name is, they share a common birth, for they all hail from the island that's the grandest place on earth. And like cushigs blooming in the fields from Rushen to Lozère, those omnipresent Manxmen are blooming everywhere.
And that's all that we have time for now, but I'll be back scanning the shelves of the archive room for more fascinating and funny stories to share with you at the same time next week. But for now, let's turn off the lights and close the door. I'm Judith Lay saying thank you for listening and wishing you a very good evening.